especially that everybody made it up and down on this little stepping stool that I grew up. And second of all, that this trailer has held together. It's an old boat trailer that I decided to resurrect this summer on behalf and for the benefit of everyone in the North Country Peace Group, so that we can take our mobile unit and go to all of the communities throughout Suffolk County in order to spread the word that there's a better person coming down the road to replace Lee Zeldin. But I too, on many occasions, have been brought to tears just because of what I witness and what you witness, and in the humorous way I've called it PTSD, and that would be President Trump stress syndrome. We are truly suffering. And as Anna said, be rude and be outspoken. And I do that on a weekly basis at WUSB here at Stony Brook. 90.1 FM. Please tune in if you don't make a practice of doing that. Along with many other people who are members of North Country Peace. Mort McCluskey, Mondays. Jim Lynch, Tuesdays. Me on Thursday, Chris Sorochin. Such programs as Critique, Progressive Solutions. I call it Lunch on Thursday because I happen to have a program around the lunch hour. And the lunch hour is significant. I watch and see these construction helmets around here. And I see people who I admire and I am jealous of because they are within a small group. And they can gather with their elected leaders and they can prevail upon the bosses to do what has to be done. We are members of a larger group. We don't have that close relationship. And very often we don't know how to go about connecting in order to make our voices heard. But today, around the issue of women and on the issue of abuse of women, and at the time when the abuser-in-chief with 26 women who've lodged complaints against him occupies the White House, then I'm so happy to be with you. Yes. Also, North Country Peace, they've been at it for a long time. In my own personal experience, it came as a result of escalating events that took place. When we first bombed Libya many, many years ago, and when we followed that up by invading Grenada, and then when we finally invaded Panama, all of that was being done purposely to wean you all away from the rejection of militarism that you had come to appreciate after Vietnam. It's taken them years and years, but now we are in full embrace of militarism. We invaded Iraq in 1990. At that time, it was my time to try to find out what in the world was going on. And I did do that by reaching out to people all over the country, and I met the best of the best with Phil Berrigan and Dan Berrigan and all those folks who've gone right into the missile silos, hammered on the warheads in order to say, stop the madness, stop the killing. As we come together, we have been presented here this morning by many people who will seek solution through the political process. They have an endless list of things that must be done. None of them can be done without a massive number of people out in the streets, out on the sidewalks, out in their communities, raising the very issues, perhaps in different terms. I haven't heard too much about militarism. We ought to end that military budget. Many of my friends are in the process of trying to convert the Pentagon into a hospital. We don't need this military. The only reason that we need the military that we have, and I learned this as a result of my work with Father Roy Bourgeois in the effort to close the School of the Americas, I learned that the military is the means by which a socio-economic system is kept in place. We saw it in Central America. The chief of staff in Trump's office now was head of Southcom. He oversaw the devastation that took place in Nicaragua, in Salvador, in Guatemala, in Honduras, in Brazil, in Chile, in Argentina. And don't think that that doesn't bother us, because the immigrants are coming to us because we've destroyed their countries.
That's right! That is right!
And as we make an effort, as one of the other speakers said, to introduce an element of morality. It's immoral to first devastate the homelands of people and then to lock them out of this country.
Yes! Yes!
And you know why it's being done? Because 1% has almost all of it. And they want all of it,
Yes,
and they
they
want it
do.
off your backs.
They do. They want an underclass. That's what they want.
So I'm pleased to be here with people who've gathered at the corner for the last 15 or more years in order to try to give voice to these issues, in order to end the violence. Martin Luther King. This is the month of Martin Luther King. We just heard Nina Simone sing, "The King of Love is dead." Did he die in vain? No, he has not died in vain, because we are here to continue his message of nonviolence or non-existence.
Right.
And thank you for all those people today who are here from North Country Peace, and Bruce and Jesse and Susan, and I know I'll forget some people, and Chuck and Myrna and all those folks who week after week after week come out, regardless of the weather almost. Some days there's a few people missing. However, they're out there to drive home these messages and these points. Systemic racism. Black lives matter. All lives matter. Poverty. It must be addressed. 1% has it all. 99% are struggling for their piece of the pie. Militarism. We must end the military budget, but we must end the means by which we give full acceptance to the use of force and violence instead of diplomacy.
No more war!
No more war. It's not necessary. We've learned to get along with one another. We must get along and recognize the fact that the U.S. is one of many equal nations throughout the world.
That's right. That's right.
American exceptionalism means nothing unless everybody isn't receiving the full meter of justice that they're entitled to.
That's right.
A fair day's pay for a fair day's work, a home over their head, adequate food, medical coverage. These people are playing games with our medical coverage. 20 million or more are going to lose it now. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to turn around and they're going to talk about the deficit that they just increased by $1.5 trillion, and they're going to say, we got to cut Medicare, we got to cut Social Security, and we got to cut any benefits that are coming to you. They're going to use the very deficit that they created. Now, our political leaders that are potentially going to go and get rid of Zeldin, they have to raise these very issues. They have to run the risk as Ms. Smith or Mrs. Smith, who goes to Washington and fights like hell for us to bring forth the human qualities that all of us share. And we don't want a government that does the exact opposite.
That's right.
Transformative change. Address that which makes us turn our backs on Syria, turn our backs on Afghanis and Iraqis and Syrians, turn our backs on little children whose bellies are bloated from starvation because of an embargo that Syria, who they tell us was perhaps involved in 9/11. But you know something? We have not yet even looked carefully at 9/11. Could it potentially have been the crowning glory that has brought us into the embrace of all of the immorality and the bad politics that now besieges us all? So on those notes, there's so much more to say, but tune into that WSB 90.1 and listen to sentiments of this type on a weekly basis. And visit us anytime on the corner of Bennett's Road and 25 Bay.
Thank you.